What's good? I'm Kinell, and this is Sinister Cinema, where we get deep into the guts of the stranger side of cinema. Just letting you know with this little bit at the start that we now have a Patreon. Sub up to that and you can get all these episodes early and ad-free, so you won't even see this bit at the start. You get them a few days before the main episodes drop out. We've got some great guests coming up. We've got some studio episodes. We've got some Zoom episodes with some fantastic rappers talking about the films they love and the films that influenced them. We got a lot going on there. Plus, you get some bonus content like film reviews, all that kind of thing. I don't need to explain this to you. You know what a Patreon is. But yeah, it's patreon.com/Kinell Sinister Cinema. So check that out. Peace. Yes, people. What's good? I'm Kinell, and this is Sinister Cinema, where we get deep into the guts of the stranger side of cinema. Kinell Sinister Cinema is brought to you by Forgotten Sons Apparel. Check them out at forgottensonsapparel.co.uk. Forgotten Sons Apparel is a York-based streetwear brand drawing inspiration from alternative culture, tattoos, film, classic TV and cartoons from our childhood. In our own words, if you like our stuff half as much as we do, then we like it twice as much as you. I'm a big fan of this brand and I love the guys who make it. They've supported me for years, way before I was podcasting. They supported me in my battle rap career. You might have seen me rocking some of their garms on Don't Flop and other leagues. I love Forgotten Sons Apparel and I'm urging you all to check them out at forgottensonsapparel.co.uk. Right, now on with the show. Hey, what's good? It is the KSC, Kinell Sinister Cinema. How are we? Safe. Been a minute. But yes, I am back. I hope you enjoyed the Grimfest footage. We had a blast there, but we're getting back onto the usual format. And this is going to be our first two-parter. Yeah, you heard me. 2 parts. Because it was quite a long conversation. Because there was a lot to talk about. It is returning guest Theo Marlow, yes, the legend himself. Flipping like, I hadn't spoke to him since after his film debuted at Fright Fest, and it went right off his short, opened up the shorts block on the Sunday, and the shit was, people were loving it, like, people really thought it was fantastic. Every little bit in it, people reacted exactly how they're supposed to. Big cinema full of people, and like in the shorts blocks, you get like a lot of other people there who've like made their short films. So it's a lot of actors, it's a lot of directors, it's a lot of talented people who understand the nature of the beast when it comes to filmmaking and arranging things in these kind of short formats. So to see all those people absolutely loving what he was doing was fantastic. But yeah, anyway, it is of course Halloween season, and for our 2-parter, like flipping, every YouTube channel's deep diving into Halloween at the minute, but I thought we'd go a bit bigger, so we're going to have a look at a big retrospective of the entire career of John Carpenter. We cover a lot of bases here, obviously, like, because there's a lot to cover. There's a lot of eras, there's no denying, like, the man had, like, certainly in my opinion, one of the greatest runs of any director, and he was banging them films out year on year. There's directors that have maybe got more consistent runs of quality, but they're not doing a film a year like John Carpenter was. So yeah, this was fantastic. I really enjoyed discussing his career. And obviously Marlow, so much love for the guy. And he really, really does know his cinema. He's a man of exceptional taste, like. And so it was great to have him on. So this is part 1 of the KSC John Carpenter retrospective with Theo Marlow.
The answer to every question is I'd rather be home playing Xbox.
Every time they make a new Halloween movie,
There's a brilliant moment that happens.
something really great happens to me.
I'm sitting on my couch,
I'm sitting on my couch.
and I extend my hand,
I extend my
and
hand.
a check drops in my hand,
Check lands.
and I continue playing video games.
On the other hand, I think Halloween 2 is an abomination and a horrible movie.
I will say that what got me through writing that script was Budweiser. 6-pack of beer a night.
A guy can make a great living writing scripts that never get made. I got this system down. I would do a quick outline, then I would do nothing for about 2 months, just have a good time. Because I gave you around 3 months to finish. And then the last 2 weeks, I take that outline and just burn through and turn it into a screenplay. They might say, oh, this is interesting, but we want you to do more work on it, and we'll pay you for that. Oh, great, thank you. I do the same thing again. Take their notes 2 weeks before I had to hand it in, burn through it.
Budweiser.
Fuck you.
Basically, here's the kind of person that I am. If you ask me to do something, I'll do anything for you. If you tell me to do something, you're never going to get any place. Do not tell me to do something. Don't.
I have worked nonstop for about 40 years. I am fucking lazy. I want to kick back and relax.
Eli Roth and his Hollywood hair. Darren Aronofsky secretly, I think, hates horror films. Let the geniuses go. I'll stay home. Play Xbox. Hell yeah.
I decided years ago, I'm going to take it easy. I've really worked hard. So I'm going to do what makes me feel good. Watching basketball, playing video games, and living here in the Hollywood Hills with my beautiful wife. What else can I ask for?
I have to go meet my drug dealer soon, so let's...
I'm going to ask just one last question, and you've remained true to the genre throughout. Do you think that you'll continue to do that?
Well, yeah, I feel a great love for fantasy and horror and science fiction. I've always had since I've been a kid. And this is the girl who brought me, basically asked me to the prom. She brought me, and so I'm going to keep dancing with her. Because she's beautiful, and I love her very much.
Yo, what's good? Kinell, Sinister Cinema, once again, the KSC podcast. Thanks for joining us. It's spooky season, Halloween, all of them things that you're obliged to say at the start of a podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, them ones. If you're on an audio channel, all the other things that you do on audio channels, I don't know, flipping 5-star reviews, all of that kind of thing. None of you'll do it, but it's cool, man. I respect that you're here in the first place. And first up, I'm going to welcome in a returning guest and absolute legend, Theo Marlow.
I've come here to chew gum and pod some cast.
Yes, that's the way, lad. That's the way, lad.
I didn't buy any chewing gum in the first place, so podcast.
Yep, podcasting is happening.
Good to be back, man. Thank you so much for having me. I really liked our last engagement on one of these, and yeah, man, this has been a great excuse to rewatch some great Carpenter films, watch like some new Carpenter films that I hadn't, filling in some of the blind spots. It's been a great journey.
Oh yeah, it is a journey, because that's what we're doing today. Like, it's Halloween, and like every YouTube podcast in the world is doing like just about Halloween and Halloween ends. But before we go right back to the start, and have a general discussion on the legend that is John Carpenter, and I don't use the term legend lightly.
Yeah, that's completely right, and interesting as well that Halloween is the kind of prerequisite to making this episode, and obviously the thing coming up, because aside from that legendary, like, pioneering first film, I've not seen any of the other Halloween films. But I'm a huge Carpenter fan, but just he hasn't directed any of the other ones, and I've just kind of been sitting on my laurels a bit with those. It's not that I don't want to see them, but interestingly, those aren't the ones that kind of speak to me as much as some of his more subversive stuff, some of his other work. But it's Halloween season, so it's like a perfect excuse to talk about a great filmmaker, which which I appreciate.
It is right. Although I do reckon you'd dig a bit of Halloween 3,
The third one, okay. I've heard the second one is an abomination, because I think Carpenter himself said that. I don't know if he was talking in jest or not, but
for flipping, like, the series goes through some lows. Like, he was like quite involved with Halloween 3. Like, he did the sequel because it was kind of like a contractual thing, like, we're going to do it with or without you kind of thing. And he wanted to take some control back, so he wrote a lot of Halloween 3 because he wanted to make the Halloween series like an anthology.
Yeah.
And Halloween 3 is the one that's like nothing to do with Michael Myers, and it's it's like got a lot of stuff to do with druids and stone circles and androids and Halloween masks that turn kids' heads into snakes. And it's very influenced by Nigel Neal, who did like the Quatermass stuff. He's like this old British sci-fi writer.
Yeah, I love the Quatermass experiment. Is that what the films are based on? I've seen the films, like the classic ones. Where that's the original source material, is it?
Yeah, it was all written by a guy called Nigel Neal, like, and there was a TV series before the films, but most of them episodes have been lost because it just didn't occur, because there was a BBC series and it didn't occur to people to fucking store stuff then.
Yeah, why would you? It's gonna forever.
Yeah, but actually, before we get into this, I've got to congratulate you on the premiere of your short film.
Oh, thank
Fright Fest. I was there, man, and the crowd were loving it, man.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, there's been some good reviews as well that have come out too. So yeah, really appreciate that. It was an interesting one. I think I said on the last episode where I was like, it's sort of strange that it's made it into Fright Fest, because we wanted to almost not reveal the fact that it's a horror film.
Yeah.
It's obviously an unsettling film, but a film that that has horror trappings until the very end, and by virtue of it just being in Fright Fest, it sort of gave that away a little bit. But I saw the photos and I was gutted to miss it, and it just looked like it was a great, and there were some other like amazing short films on there too. We've actually made it.
That's an interesting thing about like shorts blocks, is that because there's a lot of filmmakers in there. There was like like that audience, like there was a lot of artists and filmmakers, some like, a lot more experienced than you, some people who were also like just getting into things, like, and flipping, like, it was a really solid shorts block, which isn't a thing that you normally get. So like there was like a lot of flipping talent in there, and a lot of just sort of general audience checking it out, like.
So my co-writer and story consultant on Everyone Forgot, Jack, who you might have met said that Bleep was particularly good. Apparently that was a short that people should check out.
Yeah, that creased me. That I can't really go into what it's about without like spoiling it for people who are watching. Hopefully it'll turn up into other things, but that now that had a flipping punchline twist, like.
Well, speaking of those, not to deviate too much here, but I saw that you saw this film as well, so I'd be interested to get a sort of live reaction from you too, because just on films that do that to you, that are essentially a massive gut punch, particularly at the very end of them. I saw a film recently that came out this year that kind of made me reconsider if cinephilia was for me. And should I just stop with this endeavor of trying to watch as much stuff as possible? Because it really was like it was the kind of horror that to me is like turns into an actual horror, at least for the last 20 minutes. And that's Speak No Evil.
I was going to say, I've got a feeling it was going to be Speak No Evil. Fucking It's a terrifying film for anyone to watch, but to watch it as like a comparatively new parent, Jesus.
So it's a girl dad over here, mother to a daughter. That something happens, and you don't want to say exactly what it is, but there is just one of the most horrible and insane things that essentially. This filmmaker, Christian, I've forgotten his name. He's a Danish filmmaker, and he created a horror film here that it dispels with kind of monsters and vampires and ghouls and things, and in favor of a kind of Haneke-esque. It's other.
Funny Games is definitely a touch point in it.
Yeah. Funny Games, you could see a lot over it, but it was a very like. Other people are the real horror, and me anyway, and then especially as a family man, as a new dad, what it did was basically put all of the worst kind of thoughts and fears that you have in the nether regions of your mind. They just made that happen into reality, I described it to Shuffle, to Adam, because he hasn't seen it yet, but I sort of it's one of those ones where I basically just say, look, last night I saw this horror film where this and that, and I sort of described it to him as a horror film predicated on the avoidance of confrontation. which it kind of is, in this like Britishness, this feeling of Britishness that sort of seeps in so much. It's not a British film at all, but just but it, you know, the avoidance of confrontation is a big British thing, and kind of always overly being polite.
Yeah, it's forcing yourself into an uncomfortable position out of politeness.
Yeah, exactly. And then seeing,
and it is very much a comedy of manners for almost all the film.
Yeah, about 60-70% of it. And then the last 20 minutes is just the most disturbing thing, but it earns that 20 minutes. I think there's been a bit of backlash on how realistic is it, you know, the characters would behave a certain way, and it's certainly one of the most frustrating things you will ever see in a film, that last 20 minutes. But
it's been talked about like a lot, like, and I was at Grimfest with Boski this weekend.
Oh, nice,
and like flipping, like most people I spoke to, like Speak No Evil comes up in conversation, and it's always about it's flipping always about like at what point you'd check out.
Yeah, Speak No Evil. I listened to a podcast which basically said, which kind of put it nicely, which was to recommend it is almost a dare. I said to my wife, you know, under no circumstances should you ever watch this film. So then she just had to ask, because I was stupid enough to say that. She was like, well, what happens? So I described the plot in full to her, the entire synopsis, and she was basically on the verge of tears at the end. So if that sort of tells you enough as a recommendation for your listeners, hopefully more people will check it out on Shudder right now.
Flipping I'd say an opinion that I think I share, and like the one universal thing that everyone comes with it is, it's an incredible piece of filmmaking, and I do not want to watch it again anytime soon.
Well, weirdly, I thought that for the first 24 hours, because it stayed in my head. I mean, it's still in my head rent-free ever since, and it's been 2-3 weeks. And I basically, but I thought that for the first 24, 48 hours. And then I was like, I'm thinking about this film so often and so much that it's sort of hurting me more that I'm not revisiting it. And maybe I now need to watch it with fresh eyes, knowing what happens at the end, because maybe it will be one of those things where it desensitizes it a little bit more to me, because it's just upsetting. It's an upsetting watch. I mean, there's no other.
But it's an upsetting third act, and like there's the thing. A lot of people saying like that they don't want to watch it again, which is certainly understandable. But like that third act, like flipping has wiped stuff from like a lot of people's minds because of how overpowering it is. Like I was speaking to people, like there's bits in this, like I don't have children, and like so maybe I'm looking at it through a different lens, and also people have said, oh my god, it's traumatic, so I was in my brace for impact state, like which I usually am with extreme horror.
Someone had said that to you before you watched it?
I caught it on the what you call it, the Friday, and the reviews start, and like people started putting up on Twitter like, oh my god, all this kind of thing. And like one thing I wasn't expecting is, like, because I knew that what you call it, it was going to go way, way, way dark at the end, I was kind of like sort of listening to things through a different lens. And I noticed that a lot of people missed how much actually very good comedy is in it. Like, like I will say, there's one bit which involves what should we call it? One adult character flipping confronting another character about what should we call it, being mean about a child's dancing, and the line delivery of that wasn't dancing. That's the best comedic line delivery I've seen in anything this year.
By that point, I know exactly the line you mean, and I know the moment. But by that point, I'm just so freaked out, knowing that, you know, because there's this foreboding score, the whole thing is
Yeah.
dark, the whole thing is this really suspenseful tone, like you just know there's something is bubbling deep beneath the surface, and the thing that you really don't want to be happening is probably definitely happening.
Yeah.
And then it's a very like, even in a moment like that, kind of, I think there's something to be said about that, coupled with the subtitling aspect, and it not being our first language for me anyway, because I think
that's an interesting thing, because there was like 3 languages used in the film.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so they're speaking English most of the time, aren't they? But then we should just very quickly set the film up for people. But basically, a Dutch couple and a Danish couple meet, and they have similar aged children on holiday in Italy. And then 6 months later or something, they kind of hit it off for a couple of days. It's a sort of holiday, friendship. You expect to never hear from someone ever again. 6 months later, they get a postcard inviting them to their place. The Danish couple get a postcard inviting them to the Dutch couple's house in the Netherlands. They go, and things just start getting very creepy and very unsettling quickly, and also, as you were saying, quite funny sometimes, but in a sort of, oh god, nervous laughter kind of way. That even just like simple things, and this is in the trailer, but she's a vegetarian. The mother of the Danish couple is the mother in the Danish couple is a vegetarian, and the Dutch
it brings it back to like Haneke and
like meat.
It brings it back to Funny Games, how like lines are constantly being crossed, but there's a much steeper curve with Funny Games. This is it's just constant microaggressions.
It's very and it's just that level of not knowing someone well enough, and then, but then experiencing all of these things at once, and also having been invited into somebody's home, their territory, their space, that means that you don't want yourself to cross that line. And a lot of the times, the film seems to be kind of challenging the audience to say, like, what would you do in this situation? How would you react in this situation? Yada yada. And it's a sort of thing where it's like, especially in the last 20 minutes, you're just screaming at the TV, going, "What the fuck are you doing?" There's no weapons, but then you don't know. You just don't know, because I think characters in the last 20 minutes, again, it's not a spoiler to say, but they're so sort of, I think, paralyzed with fear at that point. Having been just beaten into submission.
There's been a relationship of dominance established.
Yes. And like that's the scariest aspect of this thing. You don't even realize you're watching that until it really tips over that edge. Anyway, incredible. Horror's definitely that's horror for me, and it's an interesting. But I'll make a little segue to John Carpenter, just by sheer kind of, and I don't want this to be like I'm negging out on Carpenter, because far be like the complete opposite. I'm a huge Carpenter fan, but the reason why Halloween is one of the ones that I respond to kind of the least is because I obviously came to it at a later point, learning about slasher films just in general, and so I think that context around it just didn't make any of it kind of particularly relatable or horrific. A film like Speak No Evil now today just feels so much more, there's not this there's not this schizophrenic paranoid guy who's escaped a mental asylum. It's just real people kind of in real situations. And
you're not a flipping teenage babysitter going to high school, like.
My days are over. I used to be, but it was I realized I could make more money in battle rap, so which says a lot about the babysitting industry.
Flipping exploited from day one, and maybe that's the real message of it. But this is the thing, like flipping, like just going back over all this Carpenter stuff, which a lot of it I kind of do anyway. It's just in regular rotation for me. Like I haven't really got any notes. I've just got a big pile of Blu-rays that are just things I watch all the time.
Oh, I should have got mine. They're downstairs. I have got notes, but they're completely nonsensical. And by the way, I mean, I don't know if this is like a starting point as well. I will say, like, I do like Halloween, It's just that compared to his other stuff, it doesn't resonate with me. Quite much. Because it's such a even though it basically
I think like with Halloween, like it did spawn a genre.
Yeah.
And like flipping like there was a whole decade of people trying to outdo what he did. Yeah. And like unless you saw it in the 70s, early 80s, then you're probably going to have run into these attempts to have to one up him, like some of which went really, really far and continue to this day. So that can have quite an effect on it. Like, I mean, like flipping we'll pick Halloween as a starting point, which makes sense. But obviously we've had the giallo genre existing in Italy before that, and we've had your Texas Chainsaw Massacres. Closer in spirit to this would be Black Christmas, which is the first American film that uses the kind of POV shot, which was kind of pioneered by the likes of Peeping Tom and this kind of thing in the 60s.
I only watched that recently, actually.
Yeah. But Halloween's like sort of where the formula is sort of polarized into the thing that people would continue to try and clone over the years. Like, but it does some things that a lot of those films never did, like, because very quickly after this, we have Halloween, and then 2 years later we have Friday the 13th, which takes a lot from Barber's Bay of Blood, and then it becomes about the body count, and that's what the slasher genre became. Whereas with the original Halloween, like, there's not actually that much of a body count, and a lot more about the sort of threatening presence of Michael Myers in the background.
What year was Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
It was 73.
Okay, so well preceding.
Yeah.
Does Texas Chainsaw Massacre invent the idea, or not invent, but I appreciate it kind of comes from giallo a little bit as well, but so giallo sort of starts this idea, but the final girl thing I thought was established mostly by Carpenter in this film, because you got Jamie Lee Curtis running out and kind of she's the final of the three girls who are murdered. But I don't know if I can't. I do remember Texas Chainsaw Massacre having that idea to it as well.
I mean, there's certainly an argument that what you call it in the mainstream sort of lens of it, that Marilyn Chambers was it Marilyn Chambers, or am I naming a porn star? It was in a Cronenberg film. But yeah, the main character of Texas Chainsaw Massacre is the first final girl. But I think with Jamie Lee Curtis, we get the first example of what the final girl tropes are. The virgin who's more sensible, doesn't let her guard down, is protective of these kids.
Marilyn Burns.
Yeah, Marilyn Burns. Yeah. Marilyn Chambers was the porn star in a Rabid. Or was it Rabid? Or was it Shivers? I'm all over the place. No, I don't know. But yeah, also I think Deborah Hill deserves a lot of credit for Halloween as well, because she was in charge of writing the girl characters.
Yeah, she also played Michael Myers in the POV shot. That's her hand going in and like grabbing the knife from the drawer, and then stabbing Michael Myers' sister. Yeah. And it's quite funny. I was watching a documentary where she, explains about that, and she says that when she's explaining it, she's sort of almost talking through the scene, and then it gets to the point where Michael Myers goes into the bedroom and starts stabbing his sister to death, and Deborah Hill says in the commentary, she goes, and I wasn't actually stabbing her. I wasn't actually. It was like. Oh, okay, wow.
Oh, damn! So it's not a snuff movie. Damn.
Sorry. So what you're saying is I've been lied to. This wall pulled over my eyes, Deborah Hill. But no, yeah. She's produces this with John Carpenter, right? And
and they were in a relationship at the time.
Yeah.
And And he broke up, flipping like he's like John Carpenter. He's like he's been in relationships and in some cases marriages with like quite a few of his collaborators over the years. Like,
yeah.
It was quite interesting. Like, they're together and they're working together on this small production of Halloween, which is quite independent. Before that, he's made his student film Dark Star, which ended up getting a commercial release, which is amazing for a commercial film. And we got Assault on Precinct 13, which is a siege film, and a great film.
Love it.
And I think like at the time he wanted to make westerns, but like westerns weren't really popping. That it was all being done over in with Clint Eastwood over by the Italians and all this kind of thing. And like a siege movie set in a prison, it's much easier to get the facilities to do that. You haven't got all the horses and all this kind of thing.
I mean,
but Halloween, this small independent production, is kind of the one that like puts him that sort of puts him on the map, like. And this run of films, like the run of like we could include Dark Star, but really Assault on Precinct 13 through to They Live. It's such an incredible run.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you mentioned earlier with that entire run up to Prince of Darkness, and I've got.
Well, I got that wrong earlier because we mentioned. They live.
They live. Because that might be the crowning achievement, kind of at the end of it.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it's all about The Thing. I think The Thing is probably his best. It's where I think all of the components that you'd basically put as that's a John Carpenter film come together in the best possible way. And I think it's strangely like the one that ends up being not the silliest of his films either, because so many of the films that sort of precede it and then come after it, they tread this fine line between, I mean, essentially what he was specializing in was making, top tier B movies through most of it, even, on kind of a higher budget sometimes. And he'd just always kind of keep that same aesthetic and that same tone and that same feel. That's what, I'm sure we'll get into it, but just the fact that he could like maintain a distinct style, like across films that are not totally different, maybe, because there's a lot of
across these genres. Like let's look at this 1980s run.
Yeah.
The Fog, Escape from New York, The Thing, Christine, Starman, Big Trouble in Little China, Prince of Darkness, They Live. That's
incredible.
That's like, even though there was like great stuff became before of it, that flipping 9-film run.
Yeah.
Absolutely remarkable, just all over the shop, and like there's greatness in all these films. As you say, we mentioned The Thing. The Thing, probably my all-time favorite film of any genre.
Oh, sick. Okay, we've got to get into that then.
Yeah, but I was racking my brains thinking about it, because we spoke on Facebook not long before starting this episode, and I was trying to think of any director that's had a kind of run like that.
Yes.
Like if we look at the other horror directors, I mean, like Wes Craven's considered, one of the greats, but like his 80s run, bit spotty. You've got your Deadly Blessings. You've got Hills Have Eyes Part 2, which reused so much footage in flashbacks from the first Hills Have Eyes. Every character, including the dog, had a flashback.
I'm glad that dog got one, though.
It's really good. Like the flipping camera zooms in on it. It's like,
very long time since I've seen those films.
But he just remembers biting some guy in like 1976. I really like this idea that like flipping 10 years on, a dog's like, I remember biting this guy. It's great.
yeah. It's a fond memory.
Yeah. And like Cronenberg, I thought, he was consistent throughout the 80s, but he was making a film every 2 years. John Carpenter's putting out a movie every year.
Yeah. It's crazy. He literally just made one and start on the next. I mean, almost immediately. It's like he didn't really care so much for the critical response, which wasn't always good.
Yeah, and the commercial response.
The box office was generally okay, I think, like across, so
yeah, but the one that really flipping struggled was The Thing, incredibly.
Yeah, oh yeah, that one was bad. I mean, the thing about The Thing, what was interesting about that is that, I mean, commercially and critically, it wasn't a hit at all. A lot of people say that that's because there was this film that was quite a nihilistic, gritty, like some could say a little bit pessimistic, maybe fully pessimistic alien.
Yeah.
I mean, the ending is so open in The Thing. You don't really know, like, are they going to get away with it, or is the Earth just literally about to become ravaged by the Thing? Which, Blair has that computer early on in the film where he's just able to click a button and it predicts, in 2 weeks or whatever, this thing will have taken over Earth for 72 hours or something. Total. The Thing is just inhabiting now everybody. But at the same time, the same year is when E.T. came out.
And we're coming off the back of Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yeah. So I think because E.T. comes out the same year, and that's like it probably, it certainly seemed to reflect
that's what people are looking for in alien movies. At that point,
they want to see some positive, sentimental ridden, heartfelt, alien drama where they actually, see this cute little alien. And the same year, you've got Carpenter coming out with this thing, this dog, dog's face splits open. And I was actually, when I rewatched it this week, I was watching I got the Arrow Blu-ray. I had it on, and I was just looking after my daughter. She was crawling around on the floor, and she doesn't pay attention to the TV. It's all good. And then the dog makes that noise. It starts barking, and she loves dogs in general. Literally looks up to the screen at exactly the moment when this fucking dog's face just splits open and just comes out. Like the timing of that was just impeccable. So she is now scarred for life, and but it's October, so it's all in the name of Halloween. It's great. But yeah, I love The Thing, but I think it's I mean, the New York Times famously called it instant junk. It just, people did not respond to that film, and it's
something we say a lot, like flipping, often an artist is talking out their jacksie when they say that the audiences don't get it. But this really was like a lot of people just didn't get it.
No.
This has gone on to solidify itself over time as true greatness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the source material, The Thing from Another World?
No, I thought so that's the Howard Hawks.
I think like that was the first film.
Yeah. Because he's a big,
which also appears briefly in Halloween.
Oh, of course, yeah. It's the thing that they're watching, isn't it?
Yeah.
The kids are actually watching that in Halloween, because it's the Howard Hawks produced one, right? It's the Howard.
Both taken from a story called Who Goes There.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. So Who Goes There? I think he's sort of based it kind of a bit on both, and then put his own kind of thing to it. But he was a huge Howard Hawks fan from what I understood. So he, I mean, he said Assault on Precinct 13 was meant to be a Western.
Yeah.
He wanted to just remake Rio Bravo, but he didn't. He instead, I mean, it turned out 10 times better, because he was able to just make this incredible, gritty, suspenseful siege film in the modern day. And I don't think, like, any kind of Western, had he actually, made a Western, would have hit anywhere near as much in like the filmic conscious, I suppose. But yeah, I haven't seen it. Have you seen that original one, the Thing?
I have. It's the kind of 50s B movie that you think it's going to be. But, and like I like those kind of things, as a sort of curios. They're the kind of thing I'll put on and not really pay attention to. I'll just have it on for vibes, like. But I find it interesting that like that kind of thing is what his influences were like.
Yeah, I mean, he said, I think in an interview, he said like he didn't care. The monster looked shit, you know, and everything but he didn't care. It just totally gripped his imagination. And it's really, really good that he does, because I definitely think The Thing is, again, just kind of where you get all of the trappings of a John Carpenter film, and it's just everything that you expect to see is there on screen. But just that feeling of paranoia that just runs through the entire film, and then you get to the blood test scene, and it's just, and there's no build up, there's no kind of even a score build up or anything that leads you to the moment. Like, it's one of the biggest jump scares that like has affected me is that moment in the in the blood test scene when it's I can't remember the character's name, but it turns out to be that who's the Thing, because their blood doesn't mix.
There's a couple of incredible jump scares in that film. Like jump scares have like sort of gone on to become a format since, and like particularly now in the sort of post Blumhouse era, where it's all about that sub bass rumble coming up to it, and then it goes silent for a bit, and then you get it.
Yeah, because you're supposed to be led to believe that there's we're out the woods, there's nothing.
Yeah,
is it supposed to be at the end of the crescendo? Then you're supposed to have the jump scare. But I've seen that so many times now that it almost scares me more when there's not a jump scare afterwards, because then I'm left there thinking, when's it coming?
Yeah, it's the bit with the electroshock paddles that flipping is an incredible bit. Like,
that's incredible. I think it's got one of my one of the best lines in it. I mean, there's so many fucking great like intentional comedic bits just in there that don't feel completely tone deaf to the film. They actually complement it, if anything, and add to it. My favorite one is, I know you gentlemen have been through a lot, but if you can find the time, I'd rather not spend this winter tied to this fucking couch. Like, just they get to the final final guy in that blood test scene.
Yeah,
I love it.
The effect's incredible, like, and they still hold up. Like I've got the thing. What should we call it? Arrow Blu-ray over there. Recently picked up the 4K. Now I'm doing that. Like, and like whenever I get upgrade to a new format, I'll cop the Thing pretty much straight away. In fact, like normally, like the Thing being released on a new format is my cue to get into that format. But and like I think like film pictures and restorations have got as good as my eyes are going to go. Like, I don't think they can restore it. My eyes can't process anything better than like what 4K is.
That's what I remember thinking that when I was 12 years old and DVDs, you know, were becoming a massive thing, and I thought, well, this is so much better than VHS, obviously, and the quality. I mean, the jump was just drastic, and it's a huge leap. But then you realize now, if I stick a DVD on, I mean, it's just blurry, it's unintelligible, it's so comparative. Unless it's an older film, in which case, you know, the resolution master.
Sometimes it suits it. Like sometimes it suits it, but I mean, also like a lot of these older films, like. It's like that they've been like very well restored, and with celluloid you could always restore it. Where you can like it's just light and colors, and it can always be upgraded to the next format. Whereas like with digital, it kind of is what it is like, and we'll never be able to enhance like the movies. The example I always bring up is like flipping Tron. You know that Tron Legacy.
Yeah.
Like it's in 1080p.
Yeah.
You know, my studio episodes of this are in look better than a flipping Tron Legacy.
Yeah.
Like there's already a version of Tron that looks better than Tron Legacy, which at the time was supposed to be the most futuristic looking thing possible.
That's how they got you. It was so futuristic that it looks stuck in the past.
But like as things like keep getting upgraded from film, like it's getting to the point where it like looks better than it ever could, and like there's that's an issue that like a lot of films have had is that some things that they could get away with because of the dark, they didn't like. I think like in the last, they did the last restoration of like the original Terminator, and you could see Arnold Schwarzenegger's dick, and there's like.
So it's
like nudity has been a big problem with upgrading the formats because like
they were relying on it. The cinematography was relying on it at the time. Just no one.
Flipping like they were just hiding genitals and nipples with like shadow at the time. Now they've been upgraded to a quality where they're not hidden anymore, and there's films that have to be reclassified because there's dicks in it now.
Yeah. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, and like this was a good purchase. I think.
Let's have a look.
This is what should we call it? I got this off eBay. It says MA15 restricted. I'm not sure what. Not eBay. Flipping Amazon.
Yeah.
It's a 4-disc set with Escape from New York, Prince of Darkness, They Live, and The Fog.
I couldn't see all the films there. I was right, yeah.
Yeah, and they're all the like 4K versions, but they don't really have like the extras.
But is it a UK Blu-ray or is it?
No, it's overseas, but it gives you the option of UK anyway. Like and it's like it says Studio Kinell on it.
Yeah,
and I think like they're putting out a lot of things as 2 discs, like which is just the 1 disc is just a 4K super upscaled thing, and they're just putting out another disc that's just a Blu-ray with the extras on. A lot of these films, like I've got copies of them before, I don't need the same extras again. Like just being able to just get the best version of the film, and these 4 bangers particularly.
Yeah, of course. That was
it.
Well, there you go. That's how you thought out your top 4, because I remember you saying you saw some tweet that was asking for the top 4 John Carpenter films, and you were labouring over it because you couldn't make a decision. I think I could, by the way. I think I could quite. Yeah, I think in descending order. So top 1 being the best, I'd say The Thing, They Live, Assault on Precinct 13, and then I think I'd go In the Mouth of Madness.
Oh yeah, I love In the Mouth of Madness.
Amazing. That might be the one standout. Well, I mean, to be honest, it might be the only one I've seen out of that run. Oh no, I've seen Escape from LA as well, but then maybe one other one. But just out of that run up till They Live, I mean. In the Mouth of Madness, very scary. It was that's one of those ones where he just goes full kind of like
Lovecraft. Cosmic
yeah, exactly. He even uses lines. They use like lines from H.P. Lovecraft in the book that is it, what's his name?
Sutter Kane.
Kane, is writing, and basically just morph them into their own like the film's own purpose kind of thing.
Yeah, it was what's it called? I mean, even the title it's spun from the Mountains of Madness.
Oh, okay.
Which I believe Guillermo, the original H.P. Lovecraft property, I believe Guillermo del Toro's doing something with that at the minute.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah, but he's always doing a lot of things like, and if he ever has a misfire, Del Toro, like I'll never lose faith in him because he's one. He can always pull it back.
He can bounce back up. I wasn't a huge fan of Shape of Water, and I didn't like how much like it was kind of lorded over. But and I really liked the Nightmare Alley sort of remake, but not really. But yeah, that was it.
Yeah, I think Crimson Peak got a bit too fluffy for me. Yeah, but like I think we need to hit a bit more on In the Mouth of Madness, but just to pick a couple more out these 80s one, like The Fog, flipping is I didn't realize how much of a favorite of mine that is.
Yeah,
because
go on.
Because I mean, like normally when I try and put a list together of my favorite Carpenter, I wouldn't have immediately gone for The Fog. But when I check my letterbox, I've logged it 4 times this year, and I only log films that I've watched to the end. So, and like I only got this like a few months ago, So I think it was on Shudder. So there's been like at least 4 separate occasions where I've said I can't decide what to watch. I'm going to watch The Fog in its entirety.
Wicked.
So like it's become a comfort film for me that I always have on a lot. I always wonder like how uncomfortable that film was to make. As I mentioned earlier, like obviously he was in a relationship with Deborah Hill, and like The Fog is the first film they do after Halloween.
Yep.
And what's it called? They broke it up, and like at this point, like he's seeing Adrienne Barbeau, who's like one of the stars in this. Like, and Deborah Hill's still working there, so is still working with him. So that must have been
a lot of discomfort. Yeah. On set. Did they write it together, The Fog, or was that? Am I thinking of a different one? And Deborah Hill and John Carpenter wrote it together. But then did they split up during the making of it, and then he started seeing Adrienne Barbeau?
Yeah.
During that.
Yeah. I think he might have met Adrienne Barbeau on set, like, and
I love the idea of thinking of The Fog as a comfort film.
Yeah, it's interesting, like, because we've said he's one of these people who can just like keep switching and just turn his hand to many things. And I think like it's a good example of the way he like flipped things on his head. Because in Halloween we have Jamie Lee Curtis, who's like the virginal final girl, and establishes the tropes in that. In 1980, in 1980 with The Fog, she's just fucking immediately complete stranger, picks her up while she's hitchhiking, immediately barebacks him.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. This is one of the ones I haven't revisited just for this thing, but I completely forgot about that. Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's but this is what he could do, you know. It just, I think one of the most impressive things about, especially all of the films more or less in that 80s run, and especially the ones where he had a lot more creative input, you know, if he'd write it as well as direct it, for instance, I mean, he basically scored most, if not all of them, or worked with the scorers, or like in the case of the thing, he just hires Ennio Morricone to just do a John Carpenter score.
Yeah.
In itself. But it just, there's something where he is just able to keep, if you showed me a frame from a John Carpenter film, especially of that era, and didn't tell me it was Carpenter, and there wouldn't even have to be any actors in it, maybe it's just some dead space, he's just or he's just filled up with a bit of, you know, your mise en scènes and your, you know, your bloody it's just set dressing and lighting and how he'd make it. Like, I'd be able to instantly say that it was John Carpenter frame. It's something about the widescreen, letting all of it kind of play out masters. Even if he, you know, if he goes in for close-ups, they're never that close. It's essentially medium close-ups from kind of the chest upwards, and it's always still wide. He basically stays on the same lens, I think, throughout his entire career, with even if he's working with different cinematographers.
And he's works with good cinematographers, and most of his early films, he's working with Dean Cundey.
Yeah, what a name!
Yeah, you know, who still does all these amazing mega films and all that, like, and I think they sort of I feel like they developed the sort of John Carpenter visual style like between them. And when he works with other cinematographers, like the other people are like people who are influenced by Dean Cundey.
Exactly.
And go, oh yeah, I know how to do this in a way that John Carpenter will fuck with.
They essentially hire in if there's other cinematographers, they say, no, I get the brief. You know, I've seen the thing, or I've seen, you know, Halloween, and I'm gonna just, you know, hit the points of it, and we're just going to stay on like a 24mm lens or a 35. I don't even know what they're using, you know, necessarily on those, but it's basically staying at the same focal length, it seems like, the entire film through a lot of these, and that's kind of what I mean. It's like, so even when he's, you know, he is
you can tell it's the same guy who's directing The Fog that's directing Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah, or Starman, which is another one, which is, you know, I think kind of underrated. I genuinely liked it. I was surprised that, you know, it's like an example of, oh, he could actually lean into his sentimental side a little bit more, and actually he'd probably do quite well at that. Big Trouble, same thing, but with comedy and with kind of a bit of slapstick, a bit of silliness, a bit of fantasy.
And it's very influenced by Hong Kong cinema. And like I've heard a lot of people say that like it's one of the films that most gets the Hong Kong style of action film right, that's made in America, and like that's something very rare to nail. And it also kind of like established a form, sort of something that I think like has been copied a lot since, of like the American doofus who would be the big central hero in a movie, and like there's all this like ancient foreign folklore and magic and like kung fu techniques and shit going around, and like all that's like that, like really like Kurt Russell isn't the guy who's kicking ass in that. Like
I was going to say, that film totally just subverts Kurt Russell, that John Carpenter has helped to create and establish, and basically established almost single-handedly, like the two of them together.
Yeah, with the back-to-back in the space of 12 months, Escape from New York and The Thing.
Exactly. And it's and then just a few years later, he's just playing this dumb trucker, totally, you know, mouth agape, just really bewildered by just everything, and but also just really kind of, whatever, you know, this isn't my America. He's sort of like a bit rednecky, if I remember correctly, as well. I don't know, but like,
but I think it's kind of a trucker kind of thing, like
he'd sort of wear his MAGA cap and stuff if it was like made today. But it's it's interesting. It's I again, Big Trouble is only one I've seen, I think, a couple of times, but it's not one of my favorites, but it's one of those ones that I kind of respect it more than I enjoy it. And where I do enjoy it, I think it is through the sheer comedy that he's orchestrating in, I think, because what he's trying to do in that film a lot of the time is really parody and piss take certain fantasy films of the time. And like there's Kim Cattrall. Am I saying that correctly?
I think so. Yeah.
Kim Cattrall, who looks fucking amazing in that film, is so that's also another distraction in it.
Yeah.
But the line, like the whole, if you rewatch the scene where it's early on and they've just encountered Lopan, and I think something's happened. There's been some big action scene before it, but they all get back to the flat, and there's like confusion, and you know, Kurt Russell doesn't know who Kim Cattrall is, and you know that no one's quite sure who anyone is, and there's all these different characters there. And there's the bit, and I wrote it down here because it's like it's probably my favorite run-on sentence bit. But she goes like, "You mean?" Someone says David Lopan. They say the name. That was David Lopan. You mean the David Lopan that is chairman of the National Orient Bank and owns the Wing Kong Import-Export Trading Company, but who is so reclusive that no one's laid eyes on this guy for years? And then just there's a beat pause, and Kurt Russell goes, "What the hell are you anyway?" I mean, honestly, like it really works for sort of moments like that. But for a lot of the film, I was just like, you know, I just. It's one of those ones.
I think that's one that, I think Big Trouble in Little China benefits from a lack of context. From a lack of context. If you're watching it while you're watching a load of John Carpenter films, it won't come as a standout.
Yeah,
but,
which we did.
But if you've just been watching Speak No Evil and Funny Games back to back, like, and and you need to cheer yourself up, Big Trouble in Little China, woo, that's the one.
It's a palate cleanser for sure. From a lot of other films, but yeah, it has some good stuff to it. I mean, his character is just Kurt Russell's character throughout that is just constantly. There's not a line he says that kind of funny either to laugh with or to laugh at. I think, and it's interesting seeing the line and where John Carpenter's and Kurt Russell's intentions start and end. You know, on where the comedy is supposed to start and end. Sort of the same with Starman with Jeff Bridges, because you know there is, I mean, definitely the comedy's like fresh in your face. I think a little bit there, but it's just like it reminded me weirdly. It's like Jeff Bridges in Starman reminds me a little bit of Kirk Douglas and Spartacus, where a little bit dumb. Well, he's really, you know, simple. He's just sort of learning like how to, you know, function in society,
navigate human life
as he kind of goes. Yeah, exactly. And sort of Kirk Douglas, I think I don't know if it was just something he was like very quiet, but just is obviously really like stupid at the start of Spartacus, but then it goes on and you know, becomes more of a fully formed human being as it goes. But yeah, weirdly, Starman, like it should be so much sillier than it actually is. And Karen Allen, I think, kind of redeems herself from the fucking abomination of Raiders of the Lost Ark. So that's good. I'm not a huge Raiders fan. I kind of, you know, it's fine for me. You know, again, it's one of those films I like. Don't really see that much, but only because again, it like that's a strange reaction I think I have to films that really very obviously started and pioneered something. So like Halloween started and pioneered, or at least, you know, took some influence from films before it, but then, you know, really influenced the slash.
I think it took the influences and gave the blueprint to a genre, is how I'd put it.
Raiders of the Lost Ark does the same for kind of action adventure from that moment on, and so many of the tropes and cliches that you hear and see in Raiders of the Lost Ark, it's like, it's just, for me, it's unwatchable now. Not unwatchable, you know, but I watch it now and it's, you know, every single line is a cliche, but on a cliche, because if you did it in a film today, it wouldn't work quite as well. So it's about kind of aging and the aging of these things, and how, you know, that is, again, it's always one you kind of respect more as a historical artifact than a film.
It's not something I'd choose to revisit anytime soon. Like, but I think I'd have an all right time of it if it was just on. But you know, in the age of flipping streaming and flipping having a big pile of flipping Blu-rays behind me and flipping all this kind of thing, I don't find myself randomly clicking onto television like that. So I'm probably never gonna like wander into Raiders of the Lost Ark the way that I would on a bank holiday Monday like years ago.
Yeah, or for like Speak No Evil now. You just just put it on for vibes.
Just get the mood right.
Yeah.
In the flipping we've gone through most of his 80s films there. We really should talk about They Live.
Oh yeah, come on.
What an incredible piece of work this is.
Well, this is the one where he just goes, all right, okay, fine. Fuck the establishment. Like he just because, you know, I know
it's a combination of things, like, because on one hand, like at the point he's doing They Live, he's like coming off working. He's doing it for Universal Pictures, like sort of split with Carlico. But before that, you know, he's doing 20th Century Fox. He's doing Columbia Pictures, Universal again, like, and he's been having this studio interference. So he's probably figured, fuck these people. I just want to make the movie I want to make. And at the same time, he's like a person with like a very anti-establishment left-wing views. And, you know, he's always been like, fuck the establishment.
Yeah.
And this is the iconic fuck the establishment. Like the imagery from this film, the obey, the alien faces, like we just see it like reused today, like flipping. If you ever dip your toe, you can't dip your toe too far in the world of conspiracies without coming across them. Like you won't be there long before you find a meme that to this day uses They Live imagery.
Of course, like, I mean, and it's just completely iconic. And he'd been quite, I think, what's just great about watching John Carpenter interviews is just how in the past he sort of be like, just look, I'm not going to explain anything. It's all there on the screen.
Yeah.
And with this one, it's probably the most it's all there on the screen, but he still comes out and just goes, yeah. I mean, like, fuck Reaganism, you know, like we're like, obviously this is what the film is about. It's not
because this is the Wall Street yuppie era, isn't it? Like at this point, even Del Boy Trotter is packing a mobile phone.
Yeah, it's all at that time, isn't it? It's like the Wall Street, greed is good, Gordon Gekko's thing, the trickle down, and it's just he's going. This
anti-establishment hippie is saying, "Fuck this."
Yeah, and what were the like film? I mean, it's got a sort of Invasion of the Body Snatchers feel to it. I know I don't really know much about the kind of source material behind this, but
and we're gonna tie this one up there. Ready for part 2 next week. It was a big conversation, lot to cover. Like, and we weren't really going like particularly chronologically because it's one of those things like when you're talking about a man's career like this, you end up all over the shop. You don't flip it like every second. I'm thinking of a new film he did and something else. It was an amazing conversation. We'll be picking it up next week. If you are watching this on the public episode, you can catch it a lot sooner by hitting up the Patreon, patreon.com/Kinell Sinister Cinema. And if you are seeing it on the Patreon, we'll sort you out next week. And a little bit of bonus content too. So yeah, I'm Kinell. This has been Sinister Cinema. Safe.